Hello everyone, and welcome back to One Nerd to Rule Them All. In today's video, we're going to be going back to the Fellowship as we uncover the complete tales of everyone's favourite ferocious dwarf, Gimli. We have a lot to uncover, so without further ado, let's get into the story. Gimli was born in the Blue Mountains during the time of exile for the Durin's-folk. This was about a century after the tragic destruction of Dale and the sacking of Erebor by Smaug the Golden. His father was Gloin, a direct descendant of King Nine II, and through him, the Durins of Deathless. His father joined Thorin and company in the quest to reclaim the kingdom under the mountain, but Gimli was forbidden because he was too young at the time. He was only 62. The dwarves were successful in their quest, and Gimli and his father were among the dwarves who returned to Erebor. Years later, in 3017 of the Third Age, Gimli witnessed the arrival of a messenger of Sauron, possibly a Nazgul, inquiring about Bilbo Baggins, an old acquaintance of his father's, and of course about the Ring of Power, promising tempting offers. Gimli accompanied his troubled father to Rivendell for a dual purpose of warning Bilbo and seeking the counsel of Elrond on such a weighing matter. He attended the Council of Elrond as a representative of the dwarves of Erebor. Gimli, as the only young dwarf seen at the Council of Elrond, was appointed as a member of the Fellowship of the Ring. He alone with the company wore a mail shirt and carried a broad blade axe. He quickly distinguished himself in the company by declaring he needed no map, and naming the Misty Mountains individually by their Khazad-dûr names, inspiring the comment from Sam, "A fair jawcracker dwarf language must be." Gimli stood more than all the others with Gandalf on the matter of passing through Moria. This may be influenced by his curiosity about the fate of his cousin Balin, who went before to refound the ancient kingdom of the Longbeards, and also his vengeful nature. His first clash with Legolas occurred before the doors of Durin, in a brief dispute over whose fault it was, the elves or the dwarfs, that the friendship between the two races waned. Gandalf was quick to intervene though, but it was not until Lothlorien that the two would truly become friends. He was quite helpful to Gandalf in explaining the doors to the other curious members of the Fellowship. Gandalf showed his appreciation to Gimli's skills by letting him walk up through the dark tunnels beside himself, and taking brief counsels with him when the way is unsure. Gimli reacted most indignantly to Sam's suggestion that Moria was but holes, going so far as to chant for him the ancient song of Durin. Gimli continued to be helpful to Gandalf on the rest of the Dark Passage, and boldly aided in the Battle of the Chamber of the Mazabul, protecting Balin's tomb, although this was a heartbreaking discovery for Gimli. As they began to escape and Garlin remained behind to halt the Balrog, Gimli led the others across the bridge of Khazad-dûm. He again showed great emotion when the Nid killed Zaram, taking Frodo alone out of all the company with him to see it, though Sam followed as well. This hinted at a degree of affection for Frodo, though it may merely have been because he was the most important to the company. Despite his helplessness at Lothlorien, he became the greatest hindrance to the company, when he alone was requested to be blindfolded, and all of them liked the idea the least, save for perhaps Legolas. The compromise was made that the entire company would go through the Golden Wood in this manner, that Gimli would not suffer alone. Despite this early struggle, it was Gimli of all the company that was the most remembered of his deeds in Lothlorien, for his heart softened towards Galadriel, and as a result towards elves in general, when the great lady sympathised with his sorrows, using the traditional Khazad-dûr names. In return, he attempted to compliment her, as he saw her love and understanding. Though slightly clumsy in his first attempt, he distinguished himself when, as Galadriel gave the company gifts, he asked only for a single strand of her hair. Galadriel gave him 3 hairs with a blessing, probably remembering when Feanor had requested a similar gift several millennia ago. She later referred to him as Lockbearer. Gimli wept openly at the departure from Lothlorien, calling the light more dangerous than the darkness that he had feared. By the time the Fellowship departed from Lothlorien, Gimli had become fast friends with Legolas the elf, a result of Galadriel's kindness. This too made him famous amongst the dwarves of the Third Age. After the breaking of the Fellowship, during which he and Legolas slew many orcs, Gimli listened in silence as his only remaining comrades, Aragorn and Legolas, sang a lament for Boromir, in the character of 3 of the winds. Only the east wind was left, and Gimli would not sing it, which Aragorn declared to be appropriate. For most of the chase, he served as commentator, usually leaving the decisions to Aragorn. His reaction was quite hostile to the suspicious Rohirrim, especially after Eomer's rash comment about Galadriel. Little did they know that they would become close friends in the times to come, as fiery words passed between them. After the three hunters were lent horses, Gimli and Eomer parted in peace, with promises to one another of reconciliation. Of the three hunters, Gimli seemed the most shaken by Fangorn Forest, while they searched for traces of Merry and Pippin. Gimli felt no reluctance to shoot the unarmed old man whom they thought at the time was Saruman, unlike Aragorn and Legolas. Fortunately, they did not shoot, because it was revealed to be Gandalf. After Gandalf revealed himself to them, Gimli fell to his knees. Gandalf put his hand on Gimli's head, and the dwarf laughed for the first time recorded on the Quest of the Ring. Gimli's ire was raised again in King Theoden's courts against Wormtongue, who spoke slanderously of the Lady of the Golden Wood. Gimli was delighted by the White Mountains and Helm's Deep, declaring this country has tough bones. He declared that if he had 100 of his kin, he would make the fortress invincible. During the Battle of the Hornburg, Gimli saved Eomer's life outside the gates. He came in, boasting of his first 2 orc kills to his friend Legolas. Legolas estimated his slaughter to amount to 20, starting the good-hearted orc-killing game that continued to the rest of the battle. Gimli was the first to the culvert, where the orcs crept through, leaping heroically into their midst from the walls. He then proceeded to lead the blocking up of the culvert. During the course of the battle, Gimli was one of those forced into the glittering caves. He was astonished to see the magnificence of these caverns, moving even Legolas with his glowing description of them. This one sight would change his life. As the battle ended, his final kill score number was 42, surpassing his friend Legolas the Elf by 1. Gimli shows a hint of humour and affection when he greets the 2 hobbits, Merry and Pippin, comfortably situated amongst Flotsam and Jetsam in the ruins of Isengard. He declared himself deep in Pippin's debt when the hobbit lent him his spare pipe. Gimli shows some of the stone's hardness of dwarfs when they met Saruman at Orthanc. Saruman used the power of his voice to sway Theoden to forgive him and make peace, and many of the Rohirrim are moved by his magic and are spellbound. Unmoved, Gimli comments that Saruman's words could not be trusted, and that from Orthanc, help would mean ruin. Saruman is angered enough by Gimli at that moment that he loses his charm. As the Fellowship of Friends again began to break up, Gandalf and Pippin headed to Minas Tirith, Theoden and his riders to Dunharrow. Gimli, out of love and respect for Aragorn, went with him, along with Legolas and the sons of Elrond and the Dunedain Rangers on the Path of the Dead. He showed great reluctance before the Dark Door. The final thought that drove him downward was the thought of being bested by an elf underground. He participated in the epic battle of the Pelennor Fields, returning with Aragorn and his other companions on the ships of the Corsar of Umbar, and later recounted his journey to the fascinated hobbits. He began to fear for Legolas, who seemed entranced by the sea. His position on Elves completely changed. He remarked, "If all the fair folk take to the havens, it will be a duller world for those who are doomed to stay." He was much more sceptical as to the overall end of men than his comrade. Gimli fought in the Battle of the Morannon, passing through unscathed, and finding the alive but bruised Pippin among the dead lying on the hill. He returned to the field of Cormallen to be reunited with his friends, and then displayed open affection for all of them, even his frequent rival Pippin. "If only because of the pain you have cost me, then I shall never forget." After the coronation of Aragorn, Gimli said farewell to his old friend Eomer, who begged for pardon as to his words of Galadriel, though he added that he still didn't think she was the fairest in the world. When he added that he considered Arwen to be fairest instead, Gimli was content with this. During the returning journey, he visited many places with Legolas, including Fangorn Forest and Aglarond. Eventually, he returned to Erebor to find it nearly devastated by war. Dain II Ironfoot had died, and Thorin III of Stonehelm was now king. Eventually, he returned to the Glittering Caves with a contingent of dwarves, becoming the Lord of the Glittering Caves. He rebuilt the gates of Minas Tirith with mithril and steel, and in both Gondor and Rohan, accomplished great works. There he met his friends Merry and Pippin, and the history of his people made its way to the Red Book. He also set out a genealogical tree of the dwarves of Erebor for King Elisar. In Anglarond, it is assumed he lived until he was old, and in 120 of the Fourth Age, he sailed with Legolas, his friends, across Belagir to Valinor, becoming the first and only dwarf to do so. So this is the story of the great dwarf Gimli. Honestly, his character and his fiery attitude makes him so enjoyable to read and so lovable, and I think that is why he's definitely one of my favourite characters from the books and of course from the movie, because I think he's portrayed incredibly well in the movie as well. But anyway, that'll be it for this video. If you have any requests of any characters or any battles you want me to cover, then please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And of course, if you haven't already, then please subscribe to the channel. We would love to have you here. But anyway, that'll be it from me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.